The ZX Spectrum home computer was released on the 23rd of April 1982. Developed by Sinclair Research Limited, the ZX Spectrum was the brainchild of Sir Clive Sinclair, original founder of Sinclair Radionics. For some, the ZX Spectrum was a programming machine, a homework tool, a device for exploring different worlds. But for others, it became an obsession, an addiction. Come with us on a journey down the corridors of Spectrum history.
My earliest memory of the Spectrum was probably Smiths and Boots in our local high street, where they had demonstration models set up. That was that was probably what made me want to buy one.
My earliest memories of the Spectrum are a friend having one, and I'd been very keen to get a ZX81. When I found out the Spectrum was coming out, I decided that was the way forward, and started writing listings based on magazine articles.
He got out the cassette player, put this cassette in the player, and I'm still trying to remember what the first game was, but I think it was Ultimate's Jetpack.
Yes, I saw the ZX Spectrum in action for the first time at a ZX Micro fair, which were these fairs in London where we all bought a table, a 6 foot by 2 foot table, and laid out our wares, like in my case the book about the ZX80, the book about the ZX81, and by that time we were selling 32k, 16k and 32k add-on memory for the ZX81.
I remember I went to somebody who had a Dragon 32, someone who had a VIC 20. Wasn't too impressed with either of them. And then I went to Neil Anderson's house, who had a Spectrum. And I remember going up into his bedroom on a Saturday morning, and he loaded up. I remember seeing Jet Set Willy, Attic Attack, Bruce Lee was one we played, Ant Attack, and then that was when I realised, like, oh, I want one of these.
And it was fantastic. And we didn't have many games for it. He didn't. He just got it. I think we had Horace Goes Skiing, I think, or one of the Horace games, and a couple of other sort of fairly sort of non-worth mentioning games. But it's great. Horace Goes Skiing was brilliant. It was quite hard as well.
I kind of missed out on the ZX81, and I'd seen, wow, that I should have been programming games on that. So I was determined, right, when the next one comes out, I'm going to buy one. I'm going to program it straight away.
Well, for me, first of all, I had a ZX81, and a friend of the family had a ZX Spectrum 16K, so I'd go around there and we'd play. I think my first ever game was 3D Tanks by DK-Tronics, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe the colours and we had sound, which is amazing. And yeah, and I got my first actual owned 48K Spectrum, 1984 Christmas.
I think I helped John Gibson with titles like Gift from the Gods. I helped on Shadowfire, but the first time I actually had hands-on experience with the Spectrum would be Never-Ending Story for Ian Weatherburn for Ocean. I did the Amstrad version and the ZX Spectrum version. I also did an Atari 8-bit version. Again, at a period where I thought, well, I was leaving the industry.
Earliest memory of a Spectrum. Well, the thing is that we came to the Spectrum quite late. It was actually with a +2. It was actually this one. What actually happened was we were writing games for Codemasters. We'd written Super Octo very successfully on the Amstrad, and then we started on to Ghost Hunters.
But the first Spectrum I ever used, I know the first machine I ever used properly to touch was a ZX81 to make these little sprites for this game called sort of the Sorcerer, which was a conversion to the Commodore to the Spectrum of a game called Gandalf, which was from a Commodore or Apple machine, I can't remember which. And My first thing I did on the Spectrum was a game called Firefox.
To play with, because I had a plan to convert the original Football Manager, which was on the ZX81, to the Spectrum. And that led to me spending, if I remember rightly, 6 weeks flat out adding the graphics that became notorious in a way on the Spectrum version, which weren't there on the ZX81. So yeah, it was a good period. It was an interesting period.
They've got an interface too on the back of it, a ROM cartridge plugged in, playing Jetpack, and I was just completely and utterly blown away by it basically. And then I pestered my parents for the rest of the year. Came to Christmas and lo and behold I got a 48k Spectrum wrapped up under the tree, so I was a very happy little boy.
I think my favourite must have been Dragon Talk. It was I'd really sort of set the pace for Dragon Talk with Avalon, and that was a sort of step up for me. The other games sort of seemed just like an essay, and this was like a book. And Dragon Talk, I'd kind of honed the control mode, and I thought I'd really pushed everything as far as I could on the machine at that point, and it was really difficult to know what to do after it, but I was very proud of what I achieved.